This will be for the con exercise. Differentiate integer powers, mixed positive and negative. All right, some notes here. You want to convert from fractional form to negative exponent form. Okay, for example, if you have something like 3 over x squared, you want to convert that to 3 times x to the negative 2. All right, this will make it easier to find the derivative. If you recall, if you have something like, let's say, 1 over x to the power of a, if you move that whole thing into the numerator, that's going to equal x to the negative a. All right, so this is the form you want it in, and that will make it easier to find the derivative. All right, so they want us to differentiate or find the derivative of this function here. And like we said in the notes, your best bet is to change these into negative exponent form. Okay, so this is going to equal the derivative. And we have 4x. And minus 3 over x is equivalent to minus 3. If you take this, this is x to the first power. If you move this up into the numerator, instead of x to the positive 1, it becomes x to the power of negative 1. All right, so this is going to be 3x to the negative 1. And same thing here. We have a plus sign. If you take this and shift it up into the numerator, that's going to be x to the negative 2 instead of x to the positive 2. All right, this is just 1. So if you had a 1 here, it would be the same thing as is. All right, and now we just distribute. It's the same as polynomials. When you find the derivative of a polynomial, you find the derivative of each individual term. Okay, so this right here, this is technically x to the first, right? So you take that 1, you move it out front. That's going to be 1 times 4. And then you decrease the exponent by 1. So it's going to be x to the power of 1 minus 1. All right, and we have a minus sign. Same thing here. You take this exponent, you move it out front. So that's going to be negative 1 times 3. And the exponent loses 1 power, 1 exponent. So you just subtract 1 from the exponent, x to the 1, negative 1 minus 1. All right, and last one, we have a plus sign. You take that negative 2, you move it out front. So that's going to be negative 2 times x, and the new power is negative 2 minus 1. All right, and cleaning this up, hope I have enough room. 1 times 4 is just 4. X to the 1 minus 1 is x to the 0. Okay, 2 negatives in a row make it positive. 1 times 3 is 3. X to the negative 1 minus 1 is going to be x to the negative 2. And here we have plus negative 2, so it's going to be a negative 2. X to the negative 2 minus 1 is going to be x to the negative 3. Okay, x to the 0 is just 1. 4 times 1 is just 1, so we can cancel that. And that's your final answer. 4 plus 3x to the negative 2 minus 2x to the negative 3. That whole thing is your answer. All right, so just enter that in the box. I use Shift 6 for the exponent, but you can also use this menu right here. All right, they want us to find the value of the derivative of this function at x equals negative 2. All right, so we're going to have to find the derivative first and then plug in x equals negative 2. All right, so we have the derivative with respect to x. And we want to change this. We have a negative sign. And we're going to take the x squared and move that to the numerator. X squared, or x to the second power, becomes x to the negative 2. Okay, you change the plus minus sign on the exponent. Minus sign here. This is x to the first power. You want to take that and move it into the numerator. Okay, keep the 7, so it's minus 7. And x to the 1 becomes x to the negative 1 once you move it into the numerator. All right, now we just want to find the derivative of this. Like we've been saying, for a polynomial, you just distribute, find the derivative of each term. All right, so let's see. You take the negative 2 and you move it out front, and then you decrease the exponent by 1. So we have a negative sign already. We took negative 2, we moved it out front. And then we have x to the negative 2 minus 1. All right, same thing here. We keep the negative sign. You want to take that negative 1, move it out front. All right, we already had a minus sign, but the negative 1 is out front. That's times 7x. And the exponent gets decreased by 1, so it's going to be negative 1 minus 1 on the x. Okay, 2 negatives in a row make it positive 2. We have x, negative 2 minus 1 is going to be negative 3. 2 negatives in a row make it positive. Times 1 does nothing. This is positive 7. And the exponent on x is negative 1 minus 1. That's going to be a negative 2. All right. So this right here is our slope function or derivative. Okay, this basically equals f prime of x. All right. And now we want to find out what the slope is at x equals negative 2. So basically, we're going to plug in negative 2 in this function right here. All right, maybe I have room. If we were to do, I'll do it up here. If we were to do f prime of negative 2, that's going to be 2 times negative 2 to the negative 3. I'm sorry, positive 2. No. It's going to be 2 times, we're plugging in negative 2 to the power of negative 3. Plus 7. And negative 2 to the power of negative 2. All right. Now I'm going to do this manually, not on the calculator. So we have 2. If we take this and shift it into the denominator, it could change the plus minus sign on the exponent. So this is in the numerator. I'm going to put it in the denominator. And instead of to the negative 3, now it's going to be to the positive 3. Here's plus 7. And same thing. Negative 2 is to the negative 2. I'm going to shift this into the denominator. And it's going to be negative 2 squared. Okay, instead of negative 2 on the exponent, I moved it down, and now it's positive 2. All right, use parentheses. Really, this is, on the odd exponent, this is the same thing. You don't need it here. But negative 2 squared, you need the parentheses. All right, so this is going to be 2 over negative 2 to the third is negative 8. And this is going to be 7 over negative 2 squared, which is to the fourth. Okay, 2 over negative 8 is the same as negative 2/8. So we can eliminate that. And 7 over 4, we need a common denominator. Times 2 makes this an 8. Times 2 on top makes this a 14. 7 over 4 is 14 over 8. Negative 2 over 8 plus 14 over 8 is going to give us 12 over 8. All right. If you want to reduce that, I don't know if they make you, but divided by 4, that's a 3. Divided by 4, that's a 2. And actually, that's 1.5. All right. So I did it the hard way. I did everything manually. If you had just entered this in your calculator, you would get 1.5. The only problem is you don't want to round off. Like if it's a repeating decimal, you can't round it off. So since this was exactly 1.5, if you had entered this in the calculator, it would work. But I wanted to show you the long way. Anyhow, 1.5, final answer.